Okay, so we're going to start off by just taking a pound of ground pork right into a bowl. Set that off to the side there. All right, so we have one leek and trim off the head and the bottom of the leek, and we want to trim it off right after the green stops. And we can actually use these later on a grill. Just grill them up, put some flavor in whatever else you're cooking on the grill. So right down the center there. And then we're going to cut this first into long strips. Oh, and we'll save the other half of that. And then we're just going to finely dice. All right, and those are going to go right into the bowl also. So next we have some garlic, and if you get garlic like this that has the starting to grow, go straight down on the top, flip it around, straight down to the bottom, and then all of these just fall right out of the skin. Now I really like garlic, so I'm putting a fair amount in, and the rest of this I'm actually going to be saving for a little bit later. And then these, just cut them thin. And if you have a garlic press, that will actually work with this as well. All right, and then all this garlic we're just going to take and chop up here. And then that is also going to go right into the bowl. Okay, so we have a piece of ginger. We're just going to give this a quick trim here. And then this fresh ginger, we're just going to grate right in. Okay, So for liquid ingredients, we have 1 tablespoon of rice wine, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, a half tablespoon of salt and a half tablespoon of sugar, and a half tablespoon of ground black pepper. And all of those are just going to go right into the bowl. So after we have all of those in the bowl, get in with your hands and just mix it up. Okay, so now we get to the fun part of actually putting this filling in the dumplings. I'm using store-bought dumplings. These are Shanghai style dumpling wrappers. You can get them at almost any Asian market. You might see these next to other kinds like Hong Kong style or Northern style. Hong Kong style dumplings are going to be much, much thinner. They're going to be for other dumpling types like shumai or the types of dumplings you might find in Japan. Northern style dumplings are going to be much thicker. They're going to be very, very toothsome. They're going to be a lot fluffier. What we're used to here in the US for dumpling wise is more in line with the Shanghai style. Now these are coated with a cornstarch. So I also have some water here. So what we're going to do is on one side there's no cornstarch, on one side there is. Dip your fingers in the water and then just go over the entire surface. And take some meat right in the center. Now, what you need to do when you fold it over is fold it over, and as you pinch, you must make sure that there are no air bubbles. These will explode when you cook them if there are air bubbles in there. So you must make sure there are no air bubbles. And there we have a dumpling. So we'll set that over to the side and we'll do it again. So find the side with the cornstarch, some water, meat in the center, fold it over, and pinch. Make sure there are no air bubbles. And that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut the camera off here, and I'm going to do a few more of these before we move on to the cooking. Okay, so very quickly here, right now I have a pot of water boiling over on the stove. We have to get the steamer basket prepared. Now, one thing that you can do, today I'm using cabbage leaves. You can use the leek tops that we had cut off before. You can use wax paper, but use something to line the inside of the basket with. So like I said, I'm going to be using some cabbage leaves, and I'm just going to cut out the core there, and then peel them off right there. And the reason I do it that way is you never necessarily know how big the cabbage leaf is or how well it's going to fit into it. So having tabs that you can just kind of pull off makes life a lot easier. So there's one. There's the other basket. And there's 2. So what we're going to do is, if you're using wax paper or ideally parchment paper, you're going to take a knife or a toothpick and poke it down through the holes. That way it'll allow the steam to kind of perforate through the paper. With this, because it doesn't give us complete coverage, there we go, because it doesn't give us complete coverage to the whole thing, I'm not worried about it. So what we're, just take your dumplings, just right inside. Get those stacked on top of each other. And as soon as our water boils, we will be ready to steam these. Okay, so this is a little bit haphazard, but we have the steamer basket on. Those are going away pretty nicely. And we're going to leave those on there for probably about 10 to 15 minutes. I have this on, mine goes up, my stove goes up to about 10. I have these on about 8. So it's not aggressive, but it's more than normal. And we're just going to let those sit there and steam. Okay, so one of the questions that you had asked was, how do I know when they're done? And that's actually pretty simple. We just have a toothpick, and first off, you can see how the wrappers are becoming translucent and they're shrinking around the filling that's inside. But we can poke it, and it's just like when you do a cake. It's coming out clean. There's a good resistance to it, which tells me that the meat's cooked. These are ready to come off. Okay, so before we start plating here, I just want to go over something real quick, and that is, for the bed of my plate, I'm actually going to be using some grilled Chinese chives. Now, if you ever see these in the market, these are fantastic grilled. You can fry these. These things are heaven. You will probably not find these in a normal supermarket. These are chives from my regular supermarket. They're big, they're circular. Chinese chives are more narrow, and they're also very, very flat. One thing that you might see in a lot of dishes is you might see a garnish with little squares of green things. Those are going to be Chinese chives. If you can find them, I highly recommend that you try them. Okay, so when it comes to the final part, preparation, getting the plate ready, etc., there's really 2 different ways you can do this. The first one is we can actually just take the steamer basket, take it straight out to the customer. Usually, if we're going to be doing this, we'll have more in there, and we'll have arranged them in a pattern, so we can just take it off and send it straight out. But for this, we're going to be actually plating them up. Now, what I have here, these are grilled Chinese chives. We'll just take a little bit of time, get those spread out on the plate nicely. And we're going to start plating up the dumplings. There's 4. And there's 8. Now, because we have a giant, basically a giant sea of red there, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of that sauce that we made and just right down on the top, give it a little bit of color. We'll put that down, and that's ready to serve. Just get some chopsticks and dig in.